This is the movie. And both movie soundtracks at the end of it. And all the movie soundtracks.
What?
Hold on.
What?
All right. Craziness. Welcome to Mix Tank. We're starting with craziness. How's it going, everybody?
Hello.
Andrew. We're
Hey,
here
Mark.
for another Mix Tank Takeover where you are going to be listening.
Yeah, but we're not
these
going to.
mixes.
We're just going to play intro videos for the next 3 hours, and then I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah, but multiples at the same time with different music. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. All
right, here we go.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, hopefully the rest of this will go slightly smoother than that. But
Yeah.
we do have a tiny bit of housekeeping. We're supposedly they're working on a randomizer so that we can randomly pick things, but that's not done. And because that's not done, we can't randomly pick things because there's no way to humanly just be random about it. I just end up listening to like the same thing 5 times because that's what'll happen. So what we're going to do is we're looking at the mixes that were submitted in the last 24 hours, and I'm going to try and get to all of them, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So I apologize in advance for anyone I don't get to. But we think that's sort of the fairest way to go. So the easiest way for me to keep track of it is to go from the oldest one from the last 24 hours. So if I scroll down and I see one that says, God, there are a lot of them. I see one that says 21 hours ago. The next one says a day ago. So that was more than 24 hours, I'm assuming. Right?
Usually.
So I apologize in advance. And now everybody's really angry, but you know. What we're gonna try and avoid though is something that happened last time when there were a bunch of people like, hey, what about my mix? And they put them in the chat, but they didn't put them in here. So here's the way this will go. I know that you guys do mix tank takeovers all the time, but technically, this is Andrew Talks to Awesome People. It just happens to be a mix tank takeover within Andrew Talks to Awesome People. So we get to have our own rules. The first rule is we start. Yeah, no.
Okay. All right.
No, I think we're good.
All right.
But so the first rule is that we start at 2:30 Eastern, 7:30 UK, not the normal mix tank takeover time because that just doesn't work for us on a Monday. And the other thing is we do stuff and we hope we get it right, and that's it. That's it. So I guess I should just dive in and start listening to stuff, right?
Yeah. Guys, I'll be in the chat watching all your comments and everything. And we had a blast with this last time. Everybody was super supportive of each other. Looking forward to doing it again. And if your mix doesn't get chosen today, don't worry. We'll be back next time with the randomizer.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to do it. So I'm doing this once a month. And obviously there are other people doing it too. So yeah. But the rules for us would be if it's in the last 24 hours, I'm going to try and get to it. So that said, I normally listen to about 5 minutes. I might not give them that long. There are arrangement things that won't come up if I don't listen at least to a big chunk. And as I'm sure you saw last time, arrangement stuff is almost important to me as like the kick drum EQ. It's actually way more important. But anyway, so I'm going to shut up and I'm going to listen to something. And we're starting with the one from Robert Lowe.
Awesome.
The Hold On To Me at the End of the Night. Because everything else says a day ago or longer, right? Cool. So we'll do that. And now everybody who submitted it before that's really angry.
One more thing. Andrew's going to be dropping a comment on Mix Tank that says Andrew was here with a link to this video. So if you are here now and you can't hang for the whole thing, you want to come back, check on your mix later. If you see that comment from Andrew, then you can go over to the video and go find your mix on there. So
yeah, it'll be in there somewhere.
Awesome. All right.
Have
fun. I'll see you on the other side.
Number 1,
Days getting longer, darling. We're coming to the end of the road. The real world won't stop calling. It's not the time to go. It doesn't have to be over. Lights still burn bright at our will. People will come and they'll bathe in the dirt just to find some place to be still. Living ain't just for the hopeful. Sunlight ain't just for the day. Leave all your sins at the table. We can just walk away when the fight is too strong. The sun doesn't shine. You're left with nothing. Hold on to me at the end of the night. Fear starts taking over. Words won't take their shape. Drown out. Fight is too strong. We can just walk away when the fight is too strong. The sun doesn't shine. You're left with nothing. Just hold on to me at the end of the night when the fight is too strong. And the sun doesn't shine. Leave all your sins at the table. We can just walk away when the fight is too strong. The sun
All right. Cool. Sounds really good. From the comments, it looks like that's tracks from Produced Like a Pro. So I would say the main thing to me is the mix is very mono. You've got the guitar off to the left, which is cool, but I would put the piano off to the right because those are the two guys playing stuff. And then that would leave a lot more room for the bass. Right now, the bass, it's there, but it's a little bit hard to hear. But I really like the overall sound of the mix. But the vocal, it's got like a mid-range thing to it. It's not terrible, it's not out of control, but the rest of the tracks sound very warm and woody and natural, and I really like that. And in the choruses, I like what's going on in the vocal, but I think I would tame it a little bit in the verses. The first chorus didn't really get enough energy at all. The second chorus did. Now, part of that is in the performance, but as a mixer, that's your job. Like, you got to make that first chorus happen a bit more. And I'm noticing that the drums feel like they're completely mono. And from reading the comment, you got overhead and kick mics. So is it a single overhead? And if it is, you might want to do some like trickery to make it a little bit stereo because there's just no width to the mix and you really want it to go wide. I think the background vocals are the only thing that really goes wide. So I was trying a little bit more out of it energy wise in the choruses. I think I said add parallel on drums in the chorus, maybe that'll give the cymbals a little more sustain and it'll just help get a little more energy into the chorus. But overall, sounds really good. Sounds really good. So I'm going to delete that and I'm going to paste in Andrew's here. and then send. All right. And again, this whole talking to myself thing is so weird. All right. So next is a mix of Lucky Number. I think we all know what song that is. Here we go.
House numbers, zip codes, birthdays, and airplane votes. I could never pass them by. I rearrange them, add them up, multiply till I find luck. Anything to call it a sign. And maybe I'm out of my mind. I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. New city, no doubts. 2 weeks to get off my friend's couch. Cutting it close, but I'll be fine. I think I found my dream apartment with all I ever wanted. Turned out it could have been a closet. Feels like nothing's going right. But the second I look at the time, I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've got some. I'm where I'm supposed to be. When I'm not looking, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I see my lucky number. I see my lucky number. I see 19. I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Cool. Overall, it sounds really good. It's a tricky song because you've got the verse, especially the first verse, is very singer-songwriter-ish, right? And then you've got the doubled vocal, and it's much more of a pop production once you get to the chorus. And I think the transition from the verse to the chorus, first chorus, worked really well. It was like, ooh, great, we've gone somewhere else. And that's a really good thing. But the transition from the end of the first chorus back into the verse, the vocal felt weird to me. So there's something making those two live a little bit more in the same world, but still have that contrast. Because, like I said, contrast going into the first chorus was great, but it definitely feels a little weird coming back to the first verse. I would like a little more low end on that kick drum. I feel like between the acoustic piano and the bass, there's some great natural low end, but that kick drum, it works really well and the rhythm feels good in the track, so you don't want to weigh it down. But I feel like it could have a little bit more low end and just feel a little weightier. And then the snare, when it comes in, it sounds great, but it's too loud. I love a loud snare, but it's like, what the hell? And then it's a little bit distracting in that section. I would say really, the snare almost sounds too good. There's too much crack on it. I would kind of boof it up a little bit just to help it fit in with the rest of the track. Because you can't get, 2 minutes into a song and then all of a sudden, like, here's something you haven't had all, but it's part of the drum kit. Like, you can surprise people the way that bridge goes somewhere else harmonically completely, and it's much more about the piano and stuff. That's totally cool. But I think the snare for me was just a bit distracting. So I'd make it sound a bit more like it's part of the regular verse and chorus drum kit. But overall, really, really cool. Excellent. I have to say, Andrew was here. I was there. Okay. Next is Run to the Jungle. Brendy Murray. I'm going to mute that and hit play there and hit HD. And here we go.
Hercules and churches to you, broken knees may Jesus cure you. Darkened streets, it's market season. Deacons say for good reason. Run to the jungle, run to the jungle. Find your name so hard to say, sir. Consequence mistakes too high, sir. See if they say we're getting us nowhere. Burning 2 weeks and I'm shivering sober. Run to the jungle, run to the jungle, run to the jungle, run to the jungle. Jealousy of seasons changing, time zones be rearranging. Lighted pockets with pocket lighters. Dark days are far behind her. Run to the jungle, run to the jungle, run to the jungle, run to the jungle. The trees are up like the 4th of July, telling lies to a child's eye. Hercules and churches to you, broken knees may Jesus cure you. And darkened streets, it's market season. Deacons say for good reason. Run to the jungle, run to the jungle, run to the jungle, run to the jungle.
Cool. Overall sounds really good. The first thing is the vocals harsh. So either use like a de-esser that you can tune down into the mid-range, or multi-band compressor, or soothe, or anything like that. You got to sort that out because it sounds good, but it's like it actually hurts in a few spots. So definitely smooth out the vocal a bit. I think when you do that, that will make some more room in the middle for the snare, which is needed. It sounds cool, but it's a little bit dark. Could just come up a little bit, but I think a little bit of top end and having some room in the mids for it will be really good. The main thing for me, though, is the sort of guitar arrangement in terms of what guitars are playing and where they are, because you've got the doubled acoustics and then you've got the electric on the left. And that's all the way through the song, basically. and you get to the chorus, and so what you end up with is you get this verse chorus thing where there isn't much of a difference as you go from verse to chorus. Musically, I think it's fine, but what I think I would do is in the choruses either put a short delay on the main electric guitar and then start bringing it up on the right a little bit just to help spread it. You don't want to hear it as two guitars. Or try adding an amp plug-in to the acoustic in the chorus. And again, tuck it in. But just what happens is you've got this weight of the electric guitar, which I really like. I love the low mids in there. I like that guitar, but it's just always on the left and it never changes. And if the chorus had that balanced so that that part of the spectrum was wide, then I think that would really make a big difference when you went back to the verse. And that would help a lot. I think that would be quite cool. I think that was pretty. Oh, and then the higher guitar that comes in sort of at the end of the bridge. I know I'm constantly saying to people, get stuff out of the middle. That should be dead center. That's like your vocal there and that guitar's there. And that way, when the other guitars really come back in, then the whole mix spreads out. Because that guitar is a little bit off to the left, it's more like, well, all of the electric guitars have to be on the left. And they don't. They can go anywhere you want. So I would say try that guitar dead center and see how, once the other guitars come in, the mix feels. It should feel like it just goes even wider. That's what I would say about that one. All right. Paste. Send. Next. Am I still muted? I'm still muted. Good. Okay. Out of This Hell. Oh, no, it was HD. Sorry.
Lock the door, turn off all the light, grab some wine and pour. I'll try not to call, take my friend's advice, but they never did like you at all. I wish you were here right now, 'cause you know just how to talk me down. I wish you didn't know me so well, 'cause only you could walk me out of this hell. Some records on, trying to distract my mind, but everyone avenge your song. I kiss the whiskey glass and dream of your warm smile, and pray the last time won't be the last. I wish you were here right now, 'cause you know just how to talk me down. I wish you didn't know me so well, 'cause only you could take me out of this hell. You know how to talk me off the land. You know my every step and hear my every breath, and I can almost hear you whisper in my ear. My heart is always near, and I will be right here. I wish you were here right now, 'cause you know just how to talk me down. I wish you didn't know
Nice. Good job. I've been talking sort of big picture on a lot of these, but I think we got to just talk small stuff. In the first chorus, it sounds as though there's somebody talking. It happens twice. And maybe it's meant to be there, but it's either too quiet or you should just get rid of it because it's just distracting. At first, I thought there was someone in the room or I hadn't muted the speakers here or something. So there's something going on. It happens twice in the first chorus, and I think it's more on the right than the left. And they're just some vocal rides. Like the end of the second chorus, the vocal gets lost a little bit. In the last chorus, the vocal gets lost a little bit, and you just can't let that happen. But I'm nitpicking because overall, it's really good. And I think for the first couple where we're talking about arrangement and kind of how to balance the timbre of things so that the mix feels like it gets big, this is great. When you get to that second chorus and the big guitars are on both sides, it just feels really good. There's one little answer vocal that happens almost at the end of the song where it comes in like a counter melody and it's a little mid-rangey. I would either make it, not either. I would make it sound even more different from the lead vocal because it gets a little confusing as to what's going on there. So maybe telephone that one a little bit because you do have your lead vocal continuing. So it's just weird to have two of her at the same time. And in the bridge, the sound of those hard pan background vocals is just a little weird to me. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the lead singer singing or if someone else is singing them, but there's something weird about them and it's distracting. So I don't know what to change or what to do about it. And maybe you'll love it and you should just leave it exactly how it is. But to me, that was the only thing as we went through the whole mix that was like, oh God, I don't know what the hell's going on there. So maybe have a look at that. But overall, that's really good. And for people who are not professionals, you're doing professional work. All right, moving on. Indristias, I can't begin to say it, so I'm not going to. But it's this one. You know who you are.
Sono tempi di ingiustizia globale, tutti fermi per restare a guardare, non si muove neanche un soffio di vento sul cuore, desolati ce ne stiamo da soli ore. Che
Nice. It's fucking awesome. The bridge to the end just feels great. Really, really, really good. Before I forget, at around 146, there's a bass riff, bass fill, and the top note of it feels like either it's a little bit flat or it's supposed to be up a half step. There's something clashing with the chord there. But basically, it's so weird. Everybody's mixing in mono now. Like, you've got that sort of synthy clav type part, the really attacky synth, and I can hear that there's stereo ambience on it, but it's a very mono sound and it's right in the middle. Like, that should be off to the side. I think if you did a little bit more with your panning and open up the ensemble, and it's also a little weird with the fiddle switching sides to me, like that feels like that's a person, so maybe that should always be in the same place panning wise. I think that would help a little bit, but overall it feels great. I mean, like, it's kind of a weird drum sound, but it works. It really, really works. So I wouldn't change any of that stuff. The only other thing was the very first line of the vocal has an S that takes the top of your head off, but then the rest of the vocal sounds fine. So I was going to say, well, you got to de-S the vocal, but it's that first line is the only one that's a real problem. So I wouldn't be too heavy-handed on the rest of the song, but definitely check out the S's in there. So just try panning some stuff, because again, like, the background vocals are really stereo, and that's kind of it. Everybody else feels like they're sort of in or around the middle, and you can just get more out of it. A lot to be said for stereo, because you got 2 ears, so it's a good thing. All right, moving on. Oh, hold on, I didn't say Andrew was here. All right, moving on.
Jag har gjort mitt val, stannar inte kvar, lämnar allt för livet. Jag gick min väg utan ett farväl, tog inte något för givet. Men vad vill jag nu? Det var ju jag och du. Varför gick det snett? Sa att det var fel, inte jag var hel, utan min gitarr. Lever min musik, jag är ingen butik där du kan välja. Måste ut och få luft, livet det är tufft, det går inte att säga. Jag tar ord ur min mun, lägger locket på brunn. Inget sagt, inget gjort, livet går så fort. Att vara kvar i stan, det ger jag fan. Måste hitta nya marker, har inget emot att slå rot långt från city och parker. Andas nya tag, startar en ny dag där jag lever min dröm. Jag tar ordet från mun, lägger locket på brunn. Inget sagt, inget gjort, livet går så fort.
Cool. There's some weird stuff harmonically going on, like in that last chorus and the chorus here at around 201. The second chord and then the last chord, there's some major minor thing going on between the instruments and the vocal. There's something clashing in there. Again, everything's in the middle except for the very wide organ, which is really cool. And then you've got the doubled acoustics and you've got the double background vocals. But like the rhythm guitar during the solo is in the middle with the solo. And that's not fun. Spread some things out. You guys need to go listen to some like old Stones records where there's always a guitar on one side, always a guitar on the other, but they're not always playing. And stuff changes. I mean, and obviously that you've got guitar players in the band who they own certain speakers. But again, like just because something says it's stereo doesn't mean just hard pan it and leave it. It could mean that you should go kind of here or you should go there because that'll keep the ambience, but it will move it out of the center. The drums, I feel like they're big and they don't sound bad, but when there's lots of stuff going on in the track, I sort of kind of lose them. They're almost like too weighty for their own good. The snare's probably okay, but the kick I think needs a little bit more point to it and get a little bit more rhythm out of the drum kit, if that makes any sense. But yeah, you're on your way. It's getting there. It just you got to find something between the drums and the movement of the other instruments to help out, because some of it feels really great and full, and some of it is like all I'm hearing is vocals and drums, and I'm not really hearing the instruments that are supporting it. So I think a little work on the balance and the panning, and a couple of things with the tone, and you'll be good. All right. Paste, send. And next. This next one's called Whatever.
My eyes wouldn't even open. I've been asleep for far too long. Hiding in plain sight was starting to feel much too long. You won't bring me down. You can't stop me now. You won't bring me down. As strong as I feel now, I'm ready to resist. Starting to exist, and as a consequence, ready to take my chance. There's a point to everything. If you don't find it, you must be wrong. Turning things upside down, you might wanna twist it just a little bit. I wear
Cool. Overall, sounds really good. Drums are that super compressed, punchy thing, which I think works really well. In the drums, though, when it's on the hat in the chorus, it's really good. The balance of the cymbals, it brings some energy, but without overwhelming things. The beginning, I think it's the first half of the last chorus, when he's on the ride, I just hear every once in a while kind of the sound of the stick on the cymbal, but I don't get any cymbal energy. It's all just kick, snare, and then ting, ting, ting every once in a while, but there's no kind of wash from the cymbals. And I miss that, especially compared to the second half of that chorus when it's back on the slightly open hat. So I would work on that. The vocals definitely getting lost. And part of why it's getting lost is because there's too much stuff in the middle. I feel like I'm just saying the same thing over and over, probably because I'm saying the same thing over and over. Even in the chorus, those guitars are doubled, and in the fill right before the chorus, the performance is loose enough that you really hear it as two guitars. But in the chorus, it's so tight that it feels like a mono guitar with a stereo effect on it. And that stuff is what's stepping all over the vocal. Now, the vocal may need to just come up a little bit, but I think if you could clear out some space in the mid-range in the middle, then you'd have more room for the vocal. And also, I think the snare would get a little bit more air around it, which wouldn't be a terrible thing. But overall, really good. It starts, it's very high energy and all that's cool, but I would just check out some of that stuff I said and see if you agree. Right. Next, Boogatron. Excellent. I like anything called Boogatron.
Message from 412 AD. Oh, you should see. Oh, so boring. No more parties. Fun is just dead. We've lost the manifest instructions mode. To dance. Taste the things we've lost. These things we've lost in the Boogatron. No kill, no fight, no. We want you to dance. No boom, no boom, no. We want you to dance. No kill, no fight, no. We want
Awesome. That's really great. Couple of small things. The very first stop at the end of the first chorus, where it's that kind of whoop, 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 just make more out of that. That should get some sub, like make that more Skrillex and less whatever you're channeling from like early 90s. But I love the overall feel of this, and the drums are awesome. The bass, there are only a couple of small spots early on in the song where it seems to get very slightly out of time, but I don't mind that at all. I think it's quite cool. The chorus vocals, though, they're a little too mid-rangey for me. I love the processed voice going into the choruses. I think that's really cool. But then I feel like the chorus vocals need to be slightly more natural sounding. And then there's part of the track, I think it's around here, around 211, where you've got these little arpeggio synths. Crank them up. Like, just that shit should be as loud as the vocal. There's no reason to hide those in the track the way you are. And the guitar solo, the same thing. That guitar solo should be a shredder. Right now, it sounds a little bit more like a synth. Make it just crazy and over the top, and it will be awesome. I don't even think you have to replay it. Just like that solo, but with more distortion, more like 90s metal instead of 90s what this is. And I think that contrast will be amazing. But it's a really fun track. So I'd definitely do something about that chorus vocal sound, and then just make more of the details you've already got. And that's it. It's good. All right. Ooh, another lucky number coming up. All right. Here we go.
House numbers, zip codes, birthdays, and airplane roads. Can never pass them by. I rearrange them, add them up, multiply till I find luck. Anything to call it a sign. And maybe I'm out of my mind. I see my lucky number everywhere I go, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. New city, no doubts. 2 weeks to get off my friend's couch. Cutting it close, but I'll be fine. I think I found my dream apartment with all I ever wanted. Turned out it could have been a closet. Feels like nothing's going right. But the second I look at the time, I see my lucky number everywhere I go, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've got something. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I see my
All right. I think if you took that snare sound and popped it into the other mix of this song, it would work really well. The rest of the drum sound on this just sounds kind of crazy to me. The cross stick is so loud in that first verse, and the kick drum is cool, but it's not really appropriate for the song. I think that you've spent too much time on the drum sound, if that makes any sense. I feel like if you just like pushed up the faders as they were, and then with the drum kit as a whole, with some of the other instruments in, said, oh, okay, let me get a little bit more of this out of the kick drum, a little bit more of this out of the stick. It feels as though you spent a lot of time on the kick drum sort of on its own and got this big, beefy kick, but it overwhelms the track. And like in the first verse, when the arpeggiated guitar comes in, I can't even really hear it. I'm just hearing drums and vocal. This has that same issue going from the single vocal to doubled vocal, but interestingly, this one has more of an issue going into the chorus, but it works better coming out of the chorus. So, but I think you've got to sort out the drums first. They need to be more natural to make sense in this song, and that will immediately make more room for other stuff in the track. So that's where I'd start. I'd kind of undo what you did on the drums. It's like it's good work, but it's not work that should be done on this mix, if that makes any sense. I think I didn't. Yeah, see, I didn't give my Andrew is here graffiti to this one. All right, moving on. Next one. Oh, it would help to hit play, wouldn't it?
Sono mai stato bravo a fingere buon viso, a stare in equilibrio tra un pianto ed un sorriso, sempre all'ultimo banco. Volevo stare solo, prendere il primo volo, dimostrare chi sono. Io non mai stato bravo, ma con te, con te, con te lo diventerò. Anche se, anche se, anche se non sono mai stato bravo a dirti quello che sei, tu che sai guardare oltre i problemi miei. Sei una doccia di speranza nei giorni bui, c'ho paura di non farcela più come vorrei. Aspettandoti ho capito che cos'è il tempo, le parole non sanno dar nome a quello che ho dentro. Apri il cuore, affacciati soltanto un momento, oltre le tue insicurezze è già un tramonto stupendo. E sai che ti amo, due semplici parole, ancora mi fa strano, non ci sono abituato. Non sono mai stato bravo a fingere buon viso, a stare in equilibrio tra un pianto ed un sorriso, sempre all'ultimo banco. Volevo stare solo, prendere il primo volo, dimostrare chi sono. Io non mai stato bravo, ma con te, con te, con te lo diventerò. Ricordo il mio passato, ogni tappa che ho bruciato, ogni cuore che ho spezzato. Ho corso più degli altri, gli occhi stanchi, ogni giorno un déjà vu. Dopo sei arrivata tu ed hai cambiato tutto tu. Sai cambiare il mio umore, un po' come le nuvole in cielo, sì tu. Che se sto a pezzi sei l'unico pezzo di testa che resta di me. Un muro da scalare, la forza da trovare, non so se ci sarà. Se non credo in me stesso e perdo la mia strada, sei la mia bussola. Non sono mai stato bravo a fingere buon viso, a stare in equilibrio tra un pianto ed un sorriso, sempre all'ultimo banco. Volevo stare solo, prendere il primo volo, dimostrare chi sono. Io non mai stato bravo, ma con te, con te, con te lo diventerò. Anche se, anche se, anche se non sono mai stato bravo.
It's a little bit of a weird one. It sounds really good. I love the 808 bass. I think that feels really great. But I want to hear more of everything. It all just feels a little bit far away and a little bit static. Like especially this last section where you get the 808 bass on its own and then the drums kick in. It should really step up, and it doesn't. It sounds good. The vocal sounds great all the way through. Like I can't find anything specific to say, well, you should do that. But overall, it just feels a bit flat. I think it wants either some bus processing or some parallel compression to the whole mix, maybe minus that bass or something like that, just to make things pop a little more. It's really good, but it just kind of sits there more than it should. I feel like it should be more exciting, but sonically, I don't know where to look for that. So I would like smash it up a little bit and see if it gets a little bit more lively. Because like I say, it sounds great. All the individual stuff sounds good. The programming's good. The vocal really does sound good, but it just feels a little flat. So I'd look for a little more energy in there somewhere. Sorry, I can't be more specific than that. All right. Next one.
chasing dreams where you get by on sideways looks and giggling, and I gave my life to dolls when all you ever wanted was
was just down.
Did my time chasing dreams while you get by inside restless and giggling. And I gave my life to dolls when all you ever wanted was just to have it all, but baby.
Cool. Overall, really, really good. I'm gonna paste this in while I'm thinking of it. So a tiny detail is in the intro when you got those hits. I would add a low end thing to them. It could be a tom hit with the top end rolled off, or it could be a kick sample like an 808 or whatever. But those don't really have the impact they should have. And there's no shame in layering something in there. Everybody does it. There's something going on with the overall processing on the mix or whatever it is, where the choruses aren't bigger than the verses. In a way, the verses are actually bigger. There's more space. So then each individual thing is bigger, the individual kick and snare hits and the guitar chunks. And you get to the chorus and it all sort of clamps down. And that's got to go the other way. The chorus, don't make the verses smaller because the verses sound good, but the chorus has got to be gigantic compared to the verse. And I think you just go listen to, like, I'm old, so I'll give you older references, but any of the Rage Against the Machine or Audio Slave stuff, Korn, Limp Bizkit, all that kind of thing. And only the reason I thought of Limp Bizkit was because of the groove that's going on in the verses. There's some weird timing stuff. I think most of it is in the vocal, that the vocal is getting really ahead, but there's some stuff here and there in the rest of the instruments as well. I would build the verses back up one instrument at a time and make sure that that groove is solid and funky all the way through, because when it's right, it's really, really good. And so when it gets off, the whole song just kind of loses momentum. And I love the bass tone, especially in the verses when you can really hear what it's doing. It's awesome. But this could go like a whole nother step further, I think, and be really huge in a great way. But excellent start. All right, next. Right. That's a little bit of a tough one. I think one of the things I'd say is maybe the mix is a little bit too wet overall. Where you really hear that is in the solo. The solo is really wet, but everything underneath it is just a little bit washed out. But I will tell you, the major, major problem with this mix is the toms, especially that floor tom that's in the chorus. It's just this off on the right, and it doesn't have any attack really, but it's got this long sustain, and it's not really in tune with the song. And that is definitely keeping the sections from working where he's playing the toms. So even if you have to just go to a sample and use that instead, or whatever it is, I would say first fix the toms completely. You've got to get those toms working, because right now they're really distracting and not helping. I almost think, and this is an important thing with any mix, you need to have a way to just pull all the faders down and rebuild the balance quickly without losing all the work you've done. I think a lot of the tones you've got are going to work and things like that, but I feel like there's been a lot of time spent on like the minutia, but not enough time spent on the big picture since you got the sound of it kind of together. So I would rebuild the balance from the drums on up. That would make you address the toms because they'll come up right away, and then get the bass and then get your main guitars in there and just to clear out a little bit more space around things. Like the energy of it overall is pretty good once you fix the toms, but I think you can find some more space for things and maybe it'll dry up a little bit. So that's what I would do. All right, next.
From the Ukraine, she told me I was a kind of insane. Oh, what a thing to hear, like music to my ears. I think that she's the one for me. I've been looking for her all around. I thought that she could not be found. This girl is now my girl, must be the master's will. Comfort in my suffering. My soul was blessed. You're here and now I'm blessed. I'm blessed, I'm blessed. I was a mess, took me by surprise. I dare not ask why. Why do you love a man such as I? How do you say this eloquently? Minus the ego, there's a chance for you and me. Besides, love never needs a why. It's foolish to even try. Answer that. I want to grow old forever and a day. I'm here to stay, whatever trouble comes our way. Outlandish fire, stir my heart's desire. The flame is burning brighter. I'm only asking, no need to be concerned. Don't wanna get burned. Why do you love a man such as I? I just wonder why. As it is, it was meant to be. It's this thing I often hear you say to me. I see clouds and you see rainbows. Who knows? Maybe they'll pass us by. Your over-analysis only brings on paralysis.
There's a really weird.
These are to find.
There's something not right with that chord. I feel like I heard this last time, and I feel like I mentioned that it's still really weird right there, and then the last chord of the song, and it happens once earlier in the song. Basically, I would say, except for the drums, the bass, the main guitar, and the main vocal, turn everything else up. Just is it a valve trombone? Because it sounds like a trombone, but it doesn't sound like a slide trombone. So anyway, that's got to come up. The piano's got to come up. Just bring all those other instruments up, and even the other vocal, bring those up to kind of meet where everything else is. And I think the track will just start to sound more interesting. Sonically, all fine. Just crank that other stuff up and make it a little more interesting as you go through it. And I'm just reading in the end of your notes that you're getting tired of it. So just do that and then print it, and you'll be done. And that's it. But yeah, I feel like it's too much of just vocal, main guitar, bass, drums, and those all sound fine, but they're not enough to carry a 4-minute song completely on their own. All right, cool. I did not graffitiing, and on to the next. And it's not playing.
Finding the right path can't always be sure. Easy to feel bad, even without a cause. Climbing a hill can wear you out in no time. Let go of the heat and move your feet. Go to the woods, it's good for you. Find Mother Nature and walk to the well. Go to the woods, it will do you so good. Give Mother Nature a chance to cast its spell and tell how to be good. There's no way to know how this trip will end up. How good is the show? Will there be an encore? Does one have to find the way to love my darling? Whatever, just keep moving your feet. Go to the woods, it's good for you. Find Mother Nature and walk to the well. Go to the woods, it will do you so good. Give Mother Nature a chance to cast its spell and tell how to be good. Go to the woods, it's good for you. Find Mother Nature and walk to the well. Go to the woods, it will do you so good. Give Mother Nature a chance to cast its spell and tell how to be good. Go to the woods, it's good for you. Find Mother Nature and walk to the well. Go to the woods, it will do you so good. Give Mother Nature a chance to cast its spell and tell how to be good.
Ooh, cardinal sin. I can hear the click track in the fade out. You gotta deal with that. Either get rid of the thing that's got the click in the fade, or use Isotope RX or something like that. You got to get rid of that. The only real issue is the low end on this, and you mention it in your thing. The bass is just out of control. So there are a few different ways you could deal with it. One thing is I would just start high passing the bass. Don't let it have any sub. It doesn't need it, because what's happening now is your kick drum doesn't really get to do anything because it's always being swamped by the bass. So I'd high pass the bass, and then you may need to control it even more. And you can do it in a couple of different ways. You could split it to 2 tracks and have 1 track with no low end and just get your mid range out of that to get the fingers and the sound of the bass line. And then let the other track be compressed and just be low end and add those back together. Or you could use a multiband compressor. There are different ways to approach it. But I think you've got to get the low end of the bass really contained. Then you can find out what's going on with the kick drum. I have a feeling the kick drum's got some crazy flabby sub as well, but it's hard to tell what's the bass and what's the kick. Like, you can make 60 or 80 hertz sound great by getting rid of anything below 50 hertz. So there's nothing wrong with high passing and then turning up a bunch of low end. Those two things are not incompatible. But right now, it just feels like out of control flappiness. And I think the rest of it will really fall into place once you get the low end sorted out. Because the rest of it all felt pretty good. All right. Next one. Sorry, Grandma.
Sorry, Grandma, I'm an atheist. Would you believe if I said it had nothing to do with my childhood? I promise I can still be a good person. But can't I do that without having to read that goddamn book? Would you believe me if I said I don't need a God? Think the world is a beautiful place. Would you believe me? Would you believe me? Sorry, Father, I'm an atheist. You always said life isn't fair, and that's how I knew God never cared. Sorry, Mother, I'm an atheist. I won't let it on and make the folks at the Walmart stare. Would you believe me if I said I don't need a God and think the world is a beautiful place? Would you believe me? Would you believe me? Sorry that it had to go down like this. I'm sure all this really means is a little Thanksgiving awkwardness. I hope you still think we'll meet in heaven. I promise I won't act like a fucking heathen. Would you believe me if I said I don't need a God to think the world is a beautiful place? Would you believe me if I said I don't need to pray to know that everything might one day be okay? Would you believe me if I said I still love these people even if I don't believe a word they say? Would you believe me? Would you believe me?
Nice. So a song about being an atheist, and the chorus is "Jew believe me." Get it? It's a bad joke. So overall, I think it feels really good. There's something pointy in the mid-range of the lead vocal. I also feel like in the choruses, the lead vocal might be a little bit too dry. I like that dry kind of punky lead vocal. In the verses, it's fine, but it might be a little bit loud. But in the choruses, I think like a little bit of slap or something like that just to help glue it back into the track. And it might be my imagination, but it felt like the last chorus, the background vocals are split much wider than they are in the earlier choruses. In the earlier choruses, even with the vocal being as loud and as mid-rangey as it is, it actually gets lost in a couple of spots. In the last chorus, it doesn't get lost at all. The only other thing is it feels weird to me to have doubled electric guitars and then get to the solo and just have one in the middle. And then right after the solo, you get your two electric guitars back. I'd maybe keep an electric playing some rhythm, even if it's really quiet on one side, and have solo split just a little bit out of the center. It feels like an edit. And a punk track like this, it should be a band, and like who's the soloist and where'd the other guys go, and then they come back. And so I would try and find a smoother way to get in and out of the solo. It sounds really good, but I do that. I wouldn't go for any more low end on this track. This is not the kind of track that should have lots of low end. I can hear the bass, I hear the kick, it moves along, it's good. So I'd work on getting the vocal to sit a little bit better, and then see what you can do in the solo section, and maybe see if you can pan those background vocals earlier on in the track too. Yeah, but overall, nice one. All right. Peeing on your wall. And next. All right, cool. So I didn't know there was a piano until the very end. So that's a little weird. Like it's in there somewhere. I think again, it's weird. This is another one where the vocal's almost too loud. And I think in some spaces it's too dry. It's really weird. In the vocal sections, it feels wet enough. But in the sha-la-la sections, you got that great backwards reverb going into each one, but it's like it all goes whoop, and then it's super dry on those. Those should be more spaced out, I think. Because what's happening is you end up with just the vocal, and then you got the band way down underneath. And I feel like they need to be glued together a little bit more so the band can be a little bit bigger and the vocal doesn't need to be as out front, especially in the non-lyric sections. I just feel like there's more detail inside this track that I can't hear. Like it's a cool mess, but it might be too messy. And then another thing, like a couple of songs ago, the toms sound really out of place. They don't feel like part of the drum kit. I hear the edit of that track coming on and coming off again, whether it's a gate or an edit or however you're doing it. The drums themselves feel kind of cool as a kit, but the toms don't feel like part of them. There's something weird. I'd say, even though it's not necessarily musically kind of the same, go listen to a few of the, I don't know, first couple of Doors records or something. I'm not even a huge Doors fan, but there's something in that sort of leaning towards the psychedelic thing that still has size to it that I think this mix would benefit from. So just some things that are a little bit bigger and then get the vocal down into the track a little more. Right. I'm going to have to take a minute in a minute, and maybe Mark will ask me a question or something while I rest my ears. But let's listen to the next one.
When you call me dear and drinking hours like you're doing right now, what a convenience to our broken hearts that I just threw a glass of red wine down. Let's be honest, this ain't the first time that we've let these feelings unfold. We're no stranger to walking that line, so I pick up the phone and we sound like, baby, I miss you, yeah, I miss you too. You're always on my mind, no matter what I do. Guess my lonely don't wanna be lonely. We could change it tonight if only I said, baby, come over. You say you're on your way, then I make up for all mistakes. One kiss and we're back where we started before. When you call me dear and drinking hours, it gets me double thinking twice that I take a break, baby, for the better. Wasn't for the better, no, it wasn't right. 'Cause baby, I miss you, yeah, I miss you too. You're always on my mind, no matter what I do. Guess my lonely don't wanna be lonely. We could change it tonight if only I said, baby, come over. You say you're on your way, then I'll make up for all mistakes. One kiss and we're back where we started before. When you call me dear and drinking hours, yeah, we're both a little drunk, and we know we can't blame the bottle. Got us missing on us. Baby, I miss you, yeah, I miss you too. You're always on my mind, no matter what I do. Guess my lonely don't wanna be lonely. We could change it tonight if only I say, baby,
Nice. I just want to check one thing.
Time that we let these feelings unfold. What I do gets my lonely don't up the phone and we sound like baby.
Sound like is on a weird note. That was really distracting right there. So I think you got to push that up to the next note. Overall, sounds great. Sounds really good. This is a great example of toms that fit with the kit. The only thing I want to say, which I can't tell what the hell is going on with it, in the choruses, most of the snare hits that are just on 2 and 4 sound like there's a bit of a flam, and I can't tell what it's flamming with. I mean, I can't imagine he's playing kick on 2 and 4 as well, but that's possible. So maybe it's with the bass or something. When there's a fill and the snare is on its own, it sounds great, but just the backbeat 2 and 4 snare, there's something messing with it, and I don't know what it is, but maybe sort that out, because it sounds solid and right during the fills, so it should sound like that on the backbeats. And the only other thing, just a personal preference, is I'd push the background vocals, especially in the later choruses, just a little bit. I know generally those kind of harmonies would be buried a little, but once you get to the end of the song, I think that will help add a little extra something to that last chorus, just give you a little bit of a wide thing to support the vocal. It doesn't have to happen earlier in the song, but I would push the backgrounds a little bit later. But that's just me. Overall, sounds great. That thing is basically ready to go. All right, let's listen to one more. Oh, Mark's here. All right.
Some questions?
Hold on. I gotta unmute my computer. There he is.
Ear break.
Ear break.
Cool.
Ear
All right,
break.
we got some.
So
pretty cool
is everyone
questions
angry that we're just going in order? Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
So much anger. No, everybody's cool. This is great. We had a couple suggestions for how to do it for next time, so we'll consider those and get them in. But we'll figure it out. All right. A lot of really good questions. So let's do a couple of those. I'll give you a moment. And our first one is from Sam. Ooh, that's huge. Let me just it's a professional show, folks. Let me just fix that. There we go. Okay, hold on.
There you go.
All right. So this is from Sam Shimek. What is the difference between the first 5 years of mixing versus the next 5 and the decade after that? I.e., how would you describe the different stages toward mastery?
Well, there's definitely no mastery. I mean, I'm here struggling all day, every day. I'd love to say that, man, I just put up those faders and cry with joy, but that's not the case at all. It's still a hell of a lot of work. But I think what gets quicker is your ability to pinpoint like stuff you should actually work on. As soon as you hit play, like, oh man, that's not working. I got to go work. Like the stuff I'm responding to just listening to these on the first pass, that's what will get easier and easier for you as you do more. And I think you'll also, and I find this for recording even more than mixing, you'll do less and less and less the more you mix. Like when you start off, you're EQing everything and you're just wrangling absolutely everything to try and get it to work. Whereas later on, and you can start with this early, is you're working more about a balance, and then as you get that balance, you say, well, that instrument is stepping on that instrument, let me figure out how to deal with that, as opposed to how does that instrument sound, how does that instrument sound, because how they sound together has nothing to do with how they sound alone. And you've heard this a million times, and don't solo everything and blah blah blah, but the ability to do that, to just start with more in on the mix. And then when you do have to go work on something individually, like you got to work on the drum kit, you got to figure out the overheads, and then there's a mono overhead and then a crush mic, and how do you want to pan them, and is there a phase problem, whatever. But what you end up with is a drum sound that's going to work with the track, as opposed to, oh, now that I brought the bass in, I can't hear the kick. And like that is the stuff that will go away the more experience you've got, because you'll start to shape things unconsciously to be what they need to be as you start building the rest of the mix around it.
Right. Great. Okay. Our next question. You better be careful about how you answer this one. It's a little tricky.
Oh shit.
This is from the Neve 2254E. The Neve 2254E wants to know what your favorite vintage Neve is. Compressor.
Well, I would say the 2264s, which
Oh,
what were in my console, which is like half of a 33609. I mean, that
mm,
was a pair of those was on my mix bus for years and
mm,
years. And I never replaced it with anything. I used a 33609 plugin, and then I just got sick of compressing mixes, and I haven't had a compressor on the mix bus in many years. But yeah, so that's what I used on everything. Really
awesome.
specific sound with specific settings, and that's yeah.
Cool. Okay. Our next question comes from Karen Bassett. Andrew, what headphone DAC are you using when traveling or mixing? Which Dragonfly D to A converter model? Thanks.
I'm not using a Dragonfly when I travel. When I travel, which I have not done in 2 years, I've got my Apollo Twin. So that's my headphone amp, and that was my headphone amp for years and years, even in the studio. But I'm using a Dangerous Source now. Some of that is because I really like the way it sounds, but some of it is just because of the way my studio is configured. It's what makes sense because I can go AES into it, because everything is Dante and crazy for the Atmos thing. So that's when that switched. But I was using the Twin for years in the studio, then switched to the X8P, which has really good sounding headphone outs, and then now I'm using the Dangerous Source. But for travel, it's just the Twin.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Our next one is from KCINOC. Uh, how does he deal with an uneven drummer, for example, hitting cymbals too hard or inconsistent snare hits?
Well, hitting the cymbals too hard is tough. You just got to turn down the overheads. I mean, that's it. There's nothing else you can do. Obviously, you want to get as much of that taken care of during the tracking if you can. But one thing I've seen is where people will actually move the cymbals up for the drum. Like, don't change the physical layout of the drum kit, but see if the drummer can lay off the cymbals and see what other cymbals they've got. Maybe they've got some stuff that's a little bit lighter that won't be as harsh when they're being bashed. And then inconsistent snare hits, well, compressors do well for that. Adding a sample that doesn't have any dynamics in it underneath, just a little bit, will really help to do that. Parallel compression on the snare will help to even that sort of stuff out. And sometimes you just have to edit. I mean, that's all there is to it. But you've got to make it right. You can't just live with it.
Mhm.
It's got to be right.
Awesome. Why, this is from Manny Missoni. Why would you use a limiter on a vocal while mixing?
I don't know. I don't. So it's, I use a
Cool.
couple of different parallel compressors usually, and the balance of those will change throughout the track. Sometimes I don't use them at all. And if I compress a vocal, I'll sometimes it's an 1176 all buttons in or something like that, but I don't use a limiter on vocal.
Yeah,
So I don't know why you would, but there are plenty of people who do. I'm just not someone who knows.
sure. You have other techniques for controlling the vocal. Uh, okay, so this next one, this is pretty cool. I think this is going to be fun. From Nahalem Pro. Oh my God, yes! Please ask him about his remarks on his mix of the Mars Volta. I want to hear about this mix
Well,
too. And
I
you had
know,
a
and you
second
want
part
to
of
know
that.
why you want to hear about it because I never actually mixed anything for the Mars Volta.
There you go.
That's why.
Such a damn good mix.
It's
Nobody ever asks you.
well, Rich Costi, ladies and
Awesome.
gentlemen, he mixed that. The first album, Deloused in the Comatorium, Dave Schiffman did most of the basic tracking, and then I came in and finished off overdubs for that, and then Rich Costi mixed it. And then for the next one, we tracked all the bass at my house. Omar wanted to track bass. And then he was also working on a film score, which he made me play trumpet on, which was
Amazing.
really difficult because I hadn't played trumpet in many years and it was just noisy stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I had to play trumpet. But yeah, I don't think I ever mixed anything for those guys.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, Rich Costi, fucking genius.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. Well, okay. How about the tracking? I mean, how was that?
Well, again, I
Kind
was
of Chris
doing
Farley moment.
overdubs.
Yeah.
You know,
Still?
it's I mean, Dave Schiffman is a fantastic tracking engineer. I don't know exactly how the tracks. I think For the second album, Dave tracked drums for them, and then different things got recorded in different places. They did some of it while they were on the road, and then went into the studio. And then at that point, Omar had started building his own studio, and Omar has the finished record in his head when you start. So I know for the first album, I feel like we talked about this at some point. Um, a lot of those guitar tones are very small amps. They're like little combo amps. It was the sort of Pink Floyd concept where you can get a much bigger sound out of a much smaller amp, just cause you can. So I know a lot of the guitar sounds were that, but yeah. And the overdubs, like, I mean, who knows? I just recorded a bunch of shit. So yeah, I can't think of anything in particular that was like, wow. But
Cool.
working with those guys is always wow.
Yeah. Can imagine. I'm sure there's more stories in there that we'll have to pull out of you someday on a
Someday.
Andrew. Somebody
Someday.
talks to Andrew. Okay. Luke, about the differences of color of 70s and 80s and about today's mixes. So let me, well, I don't want, you take your spin on it. You do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the big difference between kind of 70s and 80s is 70s were generally, I was going to say drier, but that's not necessarily the case. There are plenty of 70s records just swamped in reverb, but more natural, but plus reverb or something like that. In 80s, you started getting more effects devices. You get digital reverbs. You get all these things that can really add to stuff. You get people like Bob Clearmountain just exploding the idea of what you can do in a mix. You're not just capturing a performance. And obviously, from the Beatles on, the idea of, oh, it's just capturing a performance wasn't really the case. But that really started to change, I think, in the 80s. Whereas in the 70s, there are a lot of really incredibly well-recorded albums that sound amazing. Also, more compression as you go from the 70s through the 80s and up to today. And, what does stuff sound like today? I don't fucking know. Everything sounds like everything. Like it's a free-for-all now. The influences are insane to the point where, like, I would say, oh man, that sounds 90s. And someone else would say, no, it sounds 80s. And someone else would say, no, that sounds 2010s. And because everything just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back and changing a little bit and a little permutations. So it's really hard to say. I think the biggest difference really between 70s and 80s and now is in the 70s and 80s, unless it was punk records or some underground stuff, all of the major label stuff was recorded at expensive studios with a shit ton of gear and a really good sounding room. So you had opportunities for Supertramp drum sounds and Pink Floyd drum sounds and stuff like that, which are harder to come by when you're tracking at home and you got 3 mics. But that doesn't mean there isn't some amazingly cool stuff being done now. So I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I think having anything with a budget being done in a studio really did change kind of how stuff was done, even though people were experimenting and doing all sorts of crazy stuff even back then.
Right.
Not much of an answer, but I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. Okay. Very important question from Alex Reed. I'll let you read.
That is a modular. There is quite a bit of Scheps Modular on the Low Roar records from the very beginning, from the very first record. I've been putting modular stuff on there. So anything that sounds kind of weird is probably the modular on there. And, in my head, someday I'm going to do a modular record, but I don't know about that.
I think you should do a modular.
I don't think
record.
anyone would really want to hear that.
I'm pretty
No one's
sure
gonna
we
wanna-
all want to hear that.
Well,
Chat room, let them
we'll
know that we
see.
want to hear that.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'd also think that we should do an Andrew Talks to Awesome People where you talk to your modular, but it has to give responses. So
Yeah, well, it will make noises. That it will
Awesome.
do.
okay, let's see here. So this one is from Nicholas. Do you have any advice on how to get started working in the real world as a mixing engineer or as a producer?
It's really hard and really easy at the same time. It used to be you had to go through the studio hierarchy. If you can find a studio to work at, I would still recommend doing that. You will learn from people, you will be seen by people, and if you have the kind of personality that works well in a studio, I think it'll be really good. And I think a place like Flux speaks to that now, because people come through there and they do well and they're seen by people and then they move on to do other things. But while they're there, they learn from people who do this all the time. Those opportunities are many fewer than they used to be. But then the easier part that I said at the beginning is that you can just make records right now. So if you want to be in the real world mixing something, just find a local band that needs something to be mixed and mix it. And that's it. You've done a mix in the real world. Like, that's it. So my advice whenever I'm talking to people at schools and things like that is to always try and find artists who are at the same point in their career as you are, because you're not going to get in over your head. They're not going to be expecting things that you can't deliver, but also you're not going to be bored because they're shitty and you're really, really good, or, whatever the combination is. So while you're starting out, find bands that are starting out, because then you can try stuff and you can even, poke some ideas in there and see what production is like, and learn when to shut the hell up and when to give an idea, and how to deal with the fragile ego of the singer or the guitar player to get something really good out of them, but without destroying them and all that. And that you just have to learn by doing it and messing it up. And it's way easier to do that now than it used to be, because you need a laptop,
Right.
and you got a studio. So just go make records. It sounds ridiculous. Like, well, but hold on. What do you mean just go make records? Like, just go make records. There are musicians within a square mile of you who are making records, who would probably love to have somebody come in who says that they're an engineer and help them make a better record. So
absolutely,
I would do that.
Awesome. Okay. From Karen Bassett, how long does it take you on average to mix a song?
I have no idea anymore, to be honest, because I don't sit down and work on a song until it's done. So obviously some of it depends on how well put together it is, both in terms of the recording and in terms of the arrangement, because a good arrangement makes up for bad everything else. Like, it doesn't matter what the recording is if it's a really good song and a great arrangement. Like, that's it. You can just put up the faders and you're done. And it could be the best recorded thing in the world with a shitty song, and you're going to struggle. It's going to be really hard to make it good. That said, I mean, if I was guessing, if I could just sit and mix, I could probably do sort of 3 songs every 2 days kind of thing. But it's spread out over at least a week for me. Like, I might work on a song for 20 minutes 5 times in a day, and then come back to it the next day and work on it for 3 hours, and then come back to it the next day and listen to it for half an hour, but not do anything. And then the day after that, I do some final vocal rides and well, I guess I better send it, sort of thing. So I have no idea how much time I actually spend on anything.
Yeah.
And my life is total chaos.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I'm going to ask it. So, we did a whole show on SoundFlow and improving your processes and everything. Do you have any sort, with spreading it out like that, it's probably difficult, but do you have any kind of idea of maybe how much time some of that stuff has saved you, where you've kind of refined all of your processes and built some of these tools?
Oh yeah, an immense amount of time. I can prep a session in less than 20 minutes usually now, unless it's like a really crazy session and I've got to sort things out and stuff. So that is huge, because that used to take a long time of just repetitive bussing things to places and color coding and putting stuff in folders and all that kind of stuff that becomes mind numbing to the point where you can't actually work. I can prep stuff very quickly now, which is great. And then I've also, as you know, because you're helping me test it, I've got an app that prints stuff. It prints mix versions and things like that. So I no longer have the existential dread of, no, I have to print the whole album. So that's going to be a whole day. And it's going to burn me out to the point where I really can't do anything else that day. And I'll be lucky if I can get back to it the next day. And yes, I could have someone else do it. And I used to have someone else do it for me. But it's very difficult, because it's like, it's not ready. It's not ready. And oh shit, now I got to print all of it. And I can't afford to have somebody full time because I work in my house at really weird hours. So afford monetarily sometimes, because I do lots and lots and lots of more indie, smaller budget things. I think
Mhm.
people probably don't believe that. They think I'm just back here charging 10 grand a song, and I've never charged 10 grand for a song. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Um, so anyway, there are lots and lots of logistical reasons that I don't have somebody working for me who can do that. But it's also that I've got so many plugins on things, and I don't have second authorizations for all of them. And to have a second rig that you could print on, that's not possible. And I don't want
Mm.
someone in my house overnight, like while I'm sleeping, printing mixes. So, well, when would somebody else do it anyway?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
taking that off my plate helps quite a bit.
Yep.
Mark will speak to that,
Yeah.
I think.
I will
And
speak to that right now. Andrew saved me almost 3 hours over this past weekend printing different stems with his new thing. So keep an eye out because it's amazing.
yeah, it's coming. It's in test, but it's coming, and it's awesome. It takes all the pain out of that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, automating that process, and then while mixing, just the scripts to do things like I can select 3 tracks and say route that to a new folder, and it puts it in a folder, and it reroutes the output of that folder to wherever those tracks used to go, and it colors it the same as the tracks that were there, and all I have to do is type a name. Like something like that, it's easy to do, but when you have to do it 20 or 30 times while you're organizing or rerouting a session, it gets to the point where you have one little slip of the mouse, and then it's like the option key was on while you did something, and for it never ever ever to go wrong means I never really think about it. I
Mhm.
just hit the button on my Stream Deck and off it goes. And there are lots and lots of little time saving things that are not necessarily hard to do, but when they're repetitive, they suck the life out of you and make it not fun to mix. So
Yeah.
yeah, tons of
Yeah.
that stuff.
This may be a really weird analogy to it, but I have this idea in my head of Rick Rubin as a producer, which obviously you know very well how he works. But I have this idea from various things I've heard, where it's like a lot of his way of working is sitting down and getting like the first reaction. Is that accurate? Like
Yeah.
just hearing it the first time and then kind of making decisions
Oh
off of
yeah,
that.
just always being a listener. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of like having that stuff in automated processes where it's like, okay, I need it to do that thing. I'm going to hit a button and then it does it. The thing that like pops into my head from time to time is like it's keeping me more in that state of like I'm just listening. I'm just listening. I'm less worried about what's happening
Absolutely.
inside of all the minutia and the Pro
Absolutely.
Tools stuff. And yeah, staying with that
Yeah.
idea. Um,
Yeah.
okay,
No question.
so this is a pretty good question from Santi Banks. How do you make shitty songs like bad arrangement choices work? Would you actually take things out and make improvements as suggestions?
Yeah, if I can't make what people send me work, then I will figure out a way to make it work. And sometimes it's overdubbing something or whatever, but I will always try and mix what's there. You just have to hear in your head, okay, how would this work? How would the chorus work? And then you got to make it come out of the speakers. Like that's it. You've got to find a way to make it work. And sometimes you can say like, wow, you guys suck so much I can't mix this for you. Like, okay, you can bail on it. But if you take the work, you've got to make it actually happen. So
Mhm.
how you do it, like, I don't know. I mean, every example of that is totally different. But you find a way to work. And I think one of the things is that in any mix, there are only 3 or 4 things at any one time that are actually important. The rest of it's just filling up space and helping give size or messiness or rhythm or whatever.
Mhm.
But you only have to have a couple of things that actually really work at any one
Mhm.
time. So just make those things work and then shoehorn the rest of it in and make sure it doesn't break it. But you've got to it's really this won't make any sense in a way because of the words. You have to hear in your head how the mix has to feel and then make it feel that way.
Yeah.
You have to know what you want to feel like when you get to the chorus, and how you do that sonically, you know, no idea, but that's what's got to
Mhm.
happen.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Next one, and then I'm gonna.
And then I probably better listen because people get
Yep.
angry if I don't
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
more.
So we'll do this one quickly. Rod Humble. I struggle when writing my own music to know when I have enough and it's time to mix versus adding more sounds or continuing to rearrange. I tend to circle too much. Any advice?
Well, the only advice is to try and wear the hats very specifically. And the way I do it, like if I'm producing a record, I don't really write very often, but when I'm producing, while I'm producing, I refuse to mix. My sessions are incredibly simple. There might be one plugin in it for a parallel thing for drums, and there might be one reverb for vocals or something like that. Unless we're building something using plugins, then fine. You know, I've got no problem with processing. I love to process stuff as I build a track. And then when I go to mix, I mix it like I'm mixing someone else's song. I start from the beginning. I mean, obviously everything's color coded and in the same order because I just work that way. But nothing from my mix template is in the session until I'm mixing. So you just have to make a distinction there. But you don't have to, because like if you go listen to a bunch of the records, like Mike Mogus is a really good example. Fucking awesome producers, made some great records. That guy obviously mixes by overdubbing. Like if the chorus isn't big enough, add 12 more instruments to it. Great. And
Yeah.
so there doesn't have to be a line between, but if you want to draw a line between, then you've got to actually change your process between the writing and arranging part of the session and the mixing part.
Yeah, really good advice. The good thing too is you can always go back into production mode, you know. If it's your own thing, you always have
Yeah,
the
you
option.
can, but I would actually recommend avoiding that because what'll happen is you'll never really do either. You'll never finish your mix because you're like, oh well, I could just play one more thing. I mean, you know, the saying like, you know, no record is ever finished, it's just abandoned. It's kind of true. You could always go back and do something, but that doesn't mean you need to. Sometimes things just have to get out into the world. And when you've only worked on a few things, each one of those things feels more important than it actually is. Now, it could be one of those things will be the biggest song you've written in your entire career. You'll never have anything as big as it or whatever. Like it could be that it's unbelievably important, but it's not important because it's one of 5 songs that you've managed to get to this stage. And I'm not saying, you know, Rod's at this point. I'm just in general, when you're mixing, you know, you've only mixed a couple of records, like every single one is like gold. You know, you hang on to every element of every single song. But when you've mixed 1,200 songs, like did the hi-hat on 700 of those really matter as long as it wasn't fucking things up? Like, is anyone going to say like, man, that guy handled the hi-hat so well on every mix he ever did? Like, as long as you don't mishandle it, it doesn't matter if you handle it well. And this goes back to the what's important in the mix and don't spend a whole lot of time on the others. And that goes for every phase of it. What's important needs the attention, and what isn't should just get a level and a pan and call it a day and move on.
Amazing. Okay, awesome.
All right.
We could keep doing this for hours, but let's get back to the mixes.
Yeah, I feel like the page refreshed, which is not good. So I got to go down and figure out where did I get to. I was on drinking hours, but God, there's so many more. You guys have been putting in more mixes. You're breaking the rules.
And for anybody who's tuning in later, we're working on a randomizer for next time. I saw you in the comments.
Yeah, but I'm just sort of going in order.
Yep.
But I don't know. Okay, I definitely heard that one. I heard Sorry Grandma. I think I heard Super Daydream. I heard Sakura. Colors. Okay, so that's what we're up to. All right, I'm going to mute my computer and I'm going to listen and then I'm going to talk. And here we go. Cool. You ask about if there's enough bass and low mid. I would say no. I'd say that it feels really good. I love the arrangement. I love all the voices and the way all that stuff is happening. But like in the second verse where you've got the kick and the bass for a minute and then they stop and then they come back in, like that should be a real contrast. I would say like keep this, do a save as, and try and build one around the bass. Get the bass big, then the kick drum working with the bass, and then bring all the rest of it back in and see what happens. Because either the low end will just swamp everything and it's a terrible idea, or all of a sudden it's going to lend size to everything else. And I have a feeling it's just going to make everything else just bigger because it's really good, but it just feels a little bit small overall. And I think it could definitely support being bigger because it's really good. I really like the song and the arrangement. So I'd see what happens when you make it bigger. All right. Glitter Bomb. Oh, hold on. I have to pee on your fire hydrant. There you go. All right.
Drum glitter bombs and those catchy songs. Then I woke up in this body. Woke up in this body. Jumped and looked at the part. Was a pop star. Woke up in this body. Woke up in this body. To real life, not perfect. It's messy, but worth it to hear you calling my name. Keep calling, keep 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 calling my name. I'm not a superstar, got a banged up car. Woke up in this body, woke up in this body. 2 kids in tow, no sold out show. Woke up in this body, woke up in this body. To real life, not perfect, it's messy, but worth it to hear you calling my name. Keep calling, keep calling my name. Keep calling, keep calling my name. Keep calling, keep calling my name. Keep calling my name.
Seriously, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I have to say, nobody has as cute of an entourage as me.
If I had glitter and gold to have and to hold, give everything to my one true thing. Glitter and gold to have and to hold, give everything to my one true thing. Keep calling, keep calling my name. 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 Keep calling, keep calling my name.
Cool. I really like the kind of scratchy, weird little guitar that brings the song in, and then I hear it in some parts of the song, but then in other parts of the song, it seems like it just goes away. And I think it would be cool if it were there consistently in whatever sections it's in, because I think like it's in that last chorus, but it's not really in the first one or something like that. In the first verse, there's a spot between the second and third vocal line where there's an obvious edit where there's like a little bit of an overlap. And the rest of the vocal is all very naturally sung without overlap. So I think you've got to fix that, either re-sing it or redo the edit or something, because it cuts it off in a weird way, which if you were doing overlapping lines so that you were obviously sort of checkerboarding the vocal, that would work on a track like this. but you're not, except in that one place. So I'd fix that. There's something about the chorus that doesn't feel like it ever quite gets there. I think that you could leave everything that's there and maybe like add a loop or some percussion or something, but it just doesn't have a full groove. There's something missing in the groove in the choruses. So what's there, I think, is good, and I think you just need to finish it, basically. All right. That's what I would say about that. And if you saw me kind of look down in the middle of that, it's because there's some gigantic spider running around. I don't know where he is now, but he'll be back, I'm sure. All right. Next.
One, two, one, two, one, two. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two. Mama, we made it. Even though it wasn't the way I played it in my mind. It took some extra time on the ground, but now we fine though. I remember when we could hardly pay the bills. Brown bagging it to school, I could hardly pay for meals. And mother could barely pay for pills and her insulin. Man, money was the only thing missing in. Cause we still felt love, I still feel love. I just linked up with the plug, mama, we made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it. Mama, we made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it. Mama, we made it. Made it to the next level. I can't wait to buy your necklace with the diamond bezel. I might dig up you a garden with a diamond shovel. And plant a gold rose so it live forever. Man, I'm just happy that we doing better. Like we rolling in the Tesla, life is moving better. Soon as Crunk sent the beat and I played that shit, I knew exactly what to say before I laid that shit. Mama, we made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it. Yeah, mama, we made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it. I remember you was raising 2 kids. I remember no foods in the fridge. I remember us playing at the park. I remember being home before it got dark. I remember free lunches at the church. I remember stealing money from your purse, man. I remember Sunday morning watching Kung Fu. I remember telling you what I was gonna do. I remember waiting after school for you to pick us up. You had a long day at work, but just to see you smirk, it made us feel better. Frankie Beverly and Maze on the radio. 100 bun or some chips from the corner store, and we was good then. Even though we still was living in the hood then, we both knew you had us covered like a good friend. I know it's crazy, but we even understood then. Mama, we made it. We made it. We made it. We made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it. Mama, we made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it. Mama, we made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it. Yeah, mama, we made it. Sorry that it took so long for you to hear me say it.
Nice. The low end is fucking awesome. I would love to have low end like that on anything I've ever done, and it hasn't happened. Really good. Only thing, and you can especially hear it in the intro on the 1-2-1-2. There's something about the voice that doesn't feel quite present enough to me. Like, it could have more effects in the intro, and maybe that's part of it, but I would say it shouldn't. And then the first verse, whatever you want to call it, I think sounds good. But like, my instinct is I would parallel that to an all buttons in 1176 that's really spitty and overdone, and then blend just a little bit of that in to try and just give it a little bit more presence. And then also you could try adding just a little bit of low mid somewhere, just for a little more body. It feels really good. I can understand everything he's saying, but I feel like it's not quite in front enough. It's not driving the bus enough. But all forgiven because of your low end. That's what I have to say about that. Excellent. All right, next. Cool. It's really good. I'd say the one thing that needs to happen is either the snare needs to come down or the kick needs to come up. And this is a general thing for quite a few of the mixes tonight. If you listen just to the drums, whether they're programmed or live, it doesn't matter what they are. Do the kick and snare make sense together? And unless you're intentionally doing something crazy, they should. And on this one, you got this great pop with the snare, but the kick's just a little floppy and it's not driving it. So you could either make the kick more aggressive and then you get a real beat under this, or mellow the snare out a little bit and then it just lets it float. It could go either way, and I don't know which would be better or which I would like better, but I think that would be the main thing to do. If you get the groove right, then the rest of it will just play itself. There's not a whole lot to do otherwise. So I think that's where I would concentrate on that one. All right.
Down in Arizona where my wheels are turning, regret is burning in my mind. There was a girl at the bar and I played a song for her. I'm loving from afar, hoping from afar, thinking back far too much. I'm a shy man, I don't lie, man, I'm thinking about you way too much. I left from Tennessee just 3 days ago. Drove through humble towns that grew up from the plains. Now I'm getting closer, I pray that you can wait. I've come 2,000 miles for you. Down in Arizona where my wheels are turning, regret is burning in my mind. There was a girl at the bar and I played a song for her. I'm loving from afar, hoping from afar, thinking about you far too much. I'm a shy man, I don't lie, man, I'm thinking about you way too much. Stopped outside of Moab just 1 day ago. Rested at a truck stop and the Rocks put on a show. Couldn't stay to watch, our song is not complete. There's an undelivered note from you. Down in Arizona where my wheels are turning, regret is burning in my mind. There was a girl at the bar and I played a song for her. I'm loving from afar, hoping from afar, thinking about you far too much. I'm a shy man, I don't lie, man. Thinking about you way too much. Vegas was a blaze, but I drove right through the flames. I had no time for sinners, angels beckon you. Sheriff found my name on your undelivered note. Said join me tonight if you can. I guess we felt the same, though we didn't take that chance. You chose the Greyhound bus, knowing it wouldn't let you down. But it left the road near Flagstaff, rolled onto its side. The caller said it's time to say goodbye. I'm in Arizona where my wheels are turning, regret is burning in my mind. Just a girl at the bar and I played a song for her. I'm loving from afar, hoping from afar, thinking back far too much. I'm a shy man, I don't lie, man. I'm thinking about you way too much. I'm a shy man, I don't lie, man. I'm thinking about you way too much. Thinking about you way too much.
Yeah, it's weird. When I first started it, I thought, oh no, the mix is too harsh, it's too mid-rangey. But then you get to the first verse after that intro chorus, and like, no, even the vocal sounds okay in there. So there's something about the way the slide and the vocal are working together that are adding up to too much mid-range. Like with the last mix, I feel like the kick drum and the snare drum aren't part of the same kit level wise. Like there's good drive on the snare and the kick drum's kind of floaty behind it. It doesn't really have any attack, and I think it probably needs a little bit. There's something the way the arrangement works, having that intro chorus where you've got lots of slide all the way through, then all of a sudden you get to this verse and there's no slide. And that felt weird. Like he's sort of the only instrument you can really hear in the band. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, well, that guy's done now. And so I'm not sure how to remedy that, but there is something about the arrangement and the way it works where the other instruments need to be a little bit more prominent so that when it drops back to just them, you don't feel like, ooh, where'd the guy go who was playing the whole song? Then when the vocal sound itself, it might be a little mid-rangey, but it's not too bad. I think the problem is you've got that where he goes low. You'll never get a vocal sound that's going to work for everything. That one word you're going to have to just treat separately. Make sure it can be heard. It needs to be heard because it's really getting buried underneath. But just take that word, put it on another track, process it till you can hear it, and then see if it works well enough with the rest of the vocal and then kind of make it work. But don't try and find a vocal sound where that's going to work as well. That's going to be totally its own thing. So I think if you get the rest of the band up into the mix a little bit more, that will help support the vocal, not make it sound like it's sticking out too much. And then also it will help the slide come and go without feeling like the whole band's gone away when he stops. So that is my advice on that one. I'm sure you guys would like me to just say, add this many dB of this frequency to something, but I don't know what the hell that would be.
Soon as your whiskey touched my lips, you set a fire to my song, and I'm gonna take it down to heaven. We push and pull and won't let go. It's a never-ending merry come and go round once more. And know you're so insatiable. So take me down again, moan and scream and don't pretend
Wanna hear my name, your gritted teeth and a heavy breath. Just lose yourself with me and you, and tell me what you wanna do, and we'll dance along the satin till the morning. Heaven knows you're what I need, and I can only hope that what you see is you and me, and never letting go. I'm gonna tear you down so hard, you're gonna be calling out for God, and He's gonna let you know He's looking down, and just keep going. Take me down again, moaning, screaming, don't pretend. Wanna hear my name, your gritted teeth and the heavy breath. Just lose yourself with me and you, and tell me what you wanna do, and we'll dance along the satin till the morning. Failed addiction, and you've got me jonesing harder now. So take me down again, moaning, screaming, don't pretend. Wanna hear my name, through gritted teeth and a heavy breath. Whoa, lose yourself with me and you, and tell me what you wanna do, and we'll dance.
Just in the interest of time, I'm just going to stop a little early. So the sax, like you say, you haven't ridden the sax yet, but it's just too loud all the way through. So, maybe you'll do some fine tuning automation, but you can't really work on a mix if something is way too loud. And also, Mark, make a note that we're going to buy a bag of pan pots and hand them out, because nobody's panning anything. You got the Rhodes on the right, but the guitar is pretty much in the middle, the vocals in the middle, the sax is in the middle. And like, spread some stuff out, and all of a sudden you'll have more space for things. And this is not just you, it's throughout today. There are very few songs where people are using the panning to make the arrangement work, and that's it's all about it. Like, you don't need tons of EQ and compression or whatever if you use panning to help things out as well. Panning and volume are just as good for mixing as anything else, and I'd argue they're more important. So if you get some stuff out of the middle, it'll make a little bit more room for the vocal where it gets dense. And then the only other thing is the B3 coming in halfway through the song, like really loud. It's cool, but like, well, where was that dude before? For an intimate jazz thing where you've kind of figured out who's in the band, it felt weird. So if it's like, okay, the keyboard player has switched from Rhodes to organ, then keep the organ off to the right. Even though B3s are great stereo and it's really cool, it doesn't work to really do that. I think it's kind of distracting in a way, but a lot of it sounds really, really good. But don't let balance issues that are major stick around. Like I use clip gain in Pro Tools. I don't know what you're working in, but there's something like it where you don't have to write a bunch of automation just to turn the sax down overall. Just put a compressor plugin on it, don't compress, and turn down the gain. Whatever it takes, but get the balance right, because you can't mix if the balance is off. There's no way to know what that sax should sound like yet. So there you go. There's so many more mixes and we are not going to get to them all. So I apologize. And when we have a random thing, we still won't get to them all, but then you won't be mad at me because I got stuck in a certain part of the list. But anyway, moving on. Oh, hold on. I got to do that and that and that.
Is this normal? How it became, and war after war after war with me. Are you satisfied the way I bleed? And war after war after war with me. Dumb me up, dumb me down, baby, shut me up, steal the truth, hate me, I'll be yours till I die, till I die, till I die crazy. Pull me in, drag me down, make me cry for you, lie for you, break me, I'll be yours till I die, till I die, till I die crazy. I guess I'll get what I deserve over and over again for you. I'll take my licks and hope they heal over and over again for you. Numb me up, dumb me down, baby, shut me up, steal the truth, hate me, I'll be yours till I die, till I die, till I die crazy. Pull me in, drag me down, make me cry for you, lie for you, break me, I'll be yours till I die, till I die, till I die crazy. I guess I'm sick of second guessing, messing with my brain waves. I made my mind up and I'll stay. And I suppose we could go a million different ways. That I am just an animal stuck inside my cage. Do I have to lay me down 6 feet in the dirt? Do I have to kill myself for you to feel me hurt? Numb me up, dumb me down, baby, shut me up, steal the truth, hate me, I'll be yours till I die, till I die, till I die crazy. Drag me down, make me break me, I'll be yours till I die, till I die, till I die crazy. Pull me in, drag me down, then I'll get it out. Losing all, get it back, I go without its stars. I'll be yours till I die, till I die, till I die crazy.
Overall, sounds really good. I would say that it's a bit dark, and I would say the place to start would be add some mid-range to the guitars, like 1.2, 1.4, somewhere in there where the honk of the guitar is. Bring that up, and then you'll have to bring some other stuff up around it. It looks like this is produced like a Pro Tracks. I've no idea what the drums are that you were given. They sound completely programmed, and maybe they are, but there are no dynamics in the snare, and it doesn't really matter, except the rolls in the first verse sound really kind of crazy to me. So if that's the way you got them, I would put some dynamics in, just draw automation in to make them sound a little bit more natural, because it's a little bit distracting. And then the way the hi-hat cuts off in the break before the first chorus, it feels like there's an extra hit or two. There's something weird about that. So if you put the sample on the snare, I'd say blend back in more of the original snare, which would have more of the dynamics already in it, or something like that. And otherwise, you've got to actually add some dynamics, especially in that first verse. But yeah, I would say see what happens when you get some more mid-range into the mix. Like, it sounds good, but compared to a lot of the other stuff we've been hearing, it's just a little bit dark. All right.
Boats are unsteady, they rattle their sails. The oars scrape the seabed like cracked fingernails. Foreign flags fly like gulls in the sky. The Manhattan morning is coming to life. Together we stand on an island of foreign land, built by immigrant hands. Immigrant hands. Some came by will, others by force, shackled and shamed under immigrant laws. And some leave by will, others are forced. But immigrants laid down the streets of New York. Together we stand on an island of foreign land, built by immigrant hands. Immigrant hands. Trains are unsteady, they rattle their rails. The sun touches rooftops like a finger on braille. Taxi cabs fly like bees in a hive. The Manhattan morning is coming to life. Together we stand on an island of foreign land, built by immigrant hands.
Cool. Overall, sounds really good. I would say the very first Built by Immigrant, it comes out of nowhere and it's actually like, what? It seems too loud. Later on in the song, it's fine. I like the really big subby low end on that kick drum, but there's nothing else with low end going on. So maybe it's a little bit too much. I just feel like those moments have this great low end, and then I miss it when it's gone. So that's not necessarily a good thing, even though I like it when it's there. The vocal might be a little bit harsh, but it might be okay how it is. The only other thing that was a little weird to me is how processed the violin is. It feels like it's swirling the whole time, and the rest of the track is so organic that that just felt a little bit out of place. I don't know Fab's version of this, so maybe you're taking cues from that, or maybe it's how it's tracked. I don't know that, but that would be my impression of it, is that the violin feels a little too swirly and affected for the rest of the track. It could have an effect on it that is swirly, but the direct would still be there as a natural organic thing. And right now it's just the swirly version. All right. Next. I'm just going to stop it because it's 6.5 minutes, or actually it's almost 7, and we're not going to get to all that. So, first thing, I can't believe how well you almost nailed the guitar sound in the solo. I was worried about that. I absolutely love the original of this track. So, some things I'd say are the whole thing feels very closed down, and when you get to I guess it's the chorus, where the arpeggiating synth is in, like I can no longer hear the guitars at all. And one of the big things that's important about the way this song works is you go from the verse vocal that's closed down and has the delay on and has more effects, and then when you get to the part which has that synth, the vocal is much more natural and open, and the whole track opens up. And I know you said you were going for a live vibe, but you would still have that. The track needs to open in that spot. Otherwise, you're kind of missing the dynamic of the track. So you certainly don't have a problem with a faint kick now, which you mentioned in your comments. If anything, the kick is just a little bit too overbearing. I mean, look, this is a brutal song to take on. And like I said, I think you did a really good job on the guitar solo, and the verse vocal sound could work if it went to a more clean, open, natural sound in those B sections. And then the guitars have to keep up. The guitars have to still exist in those other parts of the song, but just keep at it. I mean, if you're just starting, there's a long way to go, but you're doing well. There's some really good stuff in there. But I'd say, like with everything else we talk about, this is always just about how the song feels. You've got to go back to the original of this and kind of have a roadmap in your head of how it feels going from section to section. And that's what's important to capture. You could do a hip hop remix of it, but it's still got to make as much emotional impact when you listen to it as the original. Otherwise, there's no point in listening to it. So I go back and try and find a little bit of the feel of the original in this, even if you don't go back and change some of the stuff you're doing differently. So that's what I have to say about that. See, now it's pouring. And by the way, that spider's big brother just came through here, which was a bit freaky. You'd think I was doing this like out in the woods or something. I am indoors. Okay, next. It's not playing.
On your way through the forest, on this midsummer night, fear is felt in the darkness,
Cool. At first I was thinking, are the guitars too clean? Is that what's going on? I think the vocal is a little bit quiet, but you get away with it because there's nothing really happening in the middle, which is good. I love that the guitars are panned and stay panned. I would dirty up the bass. Right now, the bass isn't really doing much. And I feel like if you dirty the bass up, then it'll lend some more weight to the guitars without them having to be dirtier. And then you'll bring the vocal up a little bit, and that will help because right now the drums sound good, but they almost feel like they're on the edge of being too loud. But rather than bring them down or do anything like that, if the bass got bigger in a fuzzy way, then I think it would just help kind of glue everything together, leaving the guitars as clean as they are, and then the vocal would come up a little bit, and I think that might be a little more compelling. It's cool how it is, but I would, well, you asked, so I'm telling you. I feel as though my brain will explode if I do too many more, so we're going to do 2 more, which I think gets us pretty much to everything that was submitted when we started. I know I'm missing some, and people are going to be mad, but don't be mad. There's no way in hell I could get to all of them, and I'm sorry, but I can't. But I'm going to listen to 2 more. Okay, it's Wonder Woman. 1992. That's amazing. That's great. It's really great. I got a couple of things for you. They're very small, but I think they will help. One, you don't really have any low end on the toms, and the attack is a little too much, and you don't get that like thing. That the toms don't get used a lot, and I feel like they should be a slightly bigger deal when they do. The drums are punchy as hell. I think they're maybe even too loud. The kick and snare are great, but by the end of the song, it's a little bit relentless. But maybe not. Maybe it's fine. Everything sounds really, really good. I would try it with the kick and snare down just a tiny bit and see if it lets the guitars do a little bit more. In the choruses, the riffs on the guitars are fine. In the verses, I think you should be riding them up a little bit. That do 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 do. Just those little answers to the vocal. There's more room for guitar in those spots. They could come up just a little bit. And then a stupid thing, but I think this will actually help a lot, is the record sample of the record noise. It's got crazy amounts of sub on it, and it's actually bigger than the song. And you hear it in that little hole right before the track really kicks in. Like the intro sounds cool and it's got this low end, and then the track itself doesn't have as much low end. And at first I was thinking, well, I want more low end, maybe add some to the kick or add some to the bass, but the track's really well balanced. Just high pass that vinyl noise. You don't need the low end on that, and it actually takes away from the track. Okay, one tiny thing, which is really, really stupid, and it probably won't work, is I'm more of a Wonder Woman man is such a better lyric than a Wonder Woman fan, but it means you would be rhyming man with man, which probably won't work. But man, I'm a Wonder Woman man. That's fucking awesome. I'm a Wonder Woman fan is good, and I really like the chorus, but you could even just fly the M and just see what happens if you say man twice in a row. It's either going to sound terrible or it's going to be good, but there is something awesome about the line, I'm a Wonder Woman man. I love that. But then again, I'm an idiot. So moving on, and I'm sorry, guys, this will be the last one. We could do a couple questions after or something like that. But it looks like Gas Station Supermodel will be our final mix review of the night.
I sip slowly on 32 OZ, knowing that you taste sweeter. I ultimately fantasize that you with me as I pay the parking meter. Heart on my sleeve, name on your shirt. Validate the 8 hours a day I work. Musty floor, step inside. Think you're giving me the eye this time. She's a gas station supermodel with a cherry lipstick stain, soda bottle and neon lights. You look just like a queen. And yes, her runway is the counter at 8 a.m. Quick trip, you can't discount her. She has me coming when I don't need a thing. Anticipate checkout, 2 packs for the letdown. 'Cause what I want I can't buy. Hand in the receipt, feel our fingers meet, and I see the twinkle in your eye. Sent on a quick trip, alternate dimension, deep into the caverns of my mind. There I find you smiling, lying naked on my bed. You spill your slushy, but I don't mind. She's a gas station
cool. There's some really good stuff in there. The thing I think I would do is I would solo up all the drums and percussion and play from section to section and make sure that things make sense. Like that first chorus kind of came out of nowhere and it made a little more sense the second time. So sometimes, you just have to get used to something, but it was like, what the hell just happened? And the other thing is that the stuff that comes in and comes up seems to all be in the middle. So in a way, your chorus, like your verse is sort of like this, and then your chorus was like that. And it all got very crowded in the middle, and I'm not hearing much on the outside. And then the bridge is super wide and really cool in that way, and seems to have drums that are more like the verse, but there's something between the three sections that just doesn't quite go together. So I would work on just the rhythm and make that stuff all make more sense, and make the chorus go wide. Don't let it go narrow, because it's definitely going narrow right now. And I think then the whole thing would be a lot more compelling. So that's what I say about that. And that's all I can listen to tonight. That's actually, we even went longer than usual. So that's over 3 hours of that. So Mark, you're going to come and ask me a question or two, and then I'm going to go drink beers and go to sleep, because that's what's going to happen.
Hello,
I'm sure
hello.
he's coming. There he is.
I am.
Hello.
I have a very interesting picture in the background there.
Oh, what you got?
I don't know, it was like a nice kind of Bob Ross-ish thing.
Nice. Did you
There
do it?
Yeah. No, not at all. It was actually just the default screensaver on the screen. Yeah. So, all right. Andrew, thank you for doing this. This is insane. You've been listening to mixes now for 3 hours.
Yeah, it seems to be what I do.
Yeah.
So, good. I hope
Thank
it's
you so
helpful.
much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This
And
is
like
insane.
I say, we're going to go buy a bag of pan pots and hand them out.
Yes. Yeah, I got the note, and I've been checking on Amazon. So I want to just say to everybody who didn't get your mix heard, thank you so much for being here. We're sorry we can't get to it. Yeah.
And I know it seems worse when we're just going up a list and then I stop than it would if we didn't listen to yours and it was random. Just think of it as random, because it's not random, but it is random. So
yeah.
Sorry, but I'll never be able to listen to them all. So I do apologize. But like I say, I think I'm doing these once a month basically now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We'll be back. We'll get to them. We'll find a way.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I want to say before I forget, next week we're back into long form interview land with Manny Marican, which should be pretty fucking good. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. It's crazy. Okay. We got some questions. Are you cool with doing a couple?
Yeah.
Get to them. And
okay. If you see brain matter leaking out of my ears, then we know it's time to stop.
It's that or a spider. Or a spider causing it.
Well, they're around, man. I wish my cats had just eat them or something. Well, they're almost as big as the cats, so.
Oh, great! Yeah, I have serious arachnophobia, so we're going to change the topic now. Our first question is from Santiago Mendez. Sorry. What is your relationship these days with mastering engineers, and do you still deliver mixes with the limiter on?
I do. I have one guy I work with who I deliver 32-bit mixes without the limiter, and then he has the same limiter as me and puts the same limiter on, but turns the mix down and then processes it to bring it back up and then relimits. But that's like a not to get it without the limiter. I haven't had too much blowback lately. My mixes are quieter than they were a few years ago, just because they are. So maybe that's good. And when I know I'm mixing an album really, really loud, I'll print versions of the main mix like down 3 dB or down 4 dB pre-limiter. I'll just literally turn the input to the limiter down, so there's less limiting, but the rest of the processing's all what it needed to be. And generally when I do that, it comes back and there's something missing and everybody in the band wants it back the way I had it. So yeah, I'm sure that they still hate me, as like a group of people. But yeah, I haven't had too much blowback lately.
Awesome. Okay, so this is a good one from Akoi. Andrew, I wonder what is your process when listening to all these tracks? How do you manage to listen to all the details, especially after so much fatigue? Any tips on how you focus?
I have no idea. I'm a mutant. It doesn't make any sense to me. I will forget everything about these songs. I mean, I've already forgotten everything except the last like 2 or 3. I've got this ridiculously weird short-term detail-oriented memory, and it happens when I'm producing as well. A band will get done with a take. I won't have taken any notes, and I will have 25 really specific things to say about it, which I won't remember 10 minutes later. So it's just the way my brain works.
Yeah.
And you don't want to live in here, believe me. Don't. You want no part of that.
Okay, important quick one from Karen Bassett. What's your favorite beer?
My favorite beer, that's a tough one. I love a couple of beers from the Bewdley Brewery, which is right near me, Bewdley. I love the Sir Keith Park, and I love the Baldwin, both sort of IPA-ish, nice and hoppy. I also love another beer called Jaipur, which is a much hoppier one. So that would be it. But my very local pub used to have a brewery that made a beer called Arrowhead, and unfortunately that doesn't happen. And it was really inconsistent, but when it was good, it was the best beer on the planet.
Nice. Okay. All right.
So if you live more than like 15 miles from me, you're not going to be able to get any of the beers I just mentioned. Jaipur you can get in the UK. Anyway.
Nice.
They sell it at Tesco.
There you go. Okay. Oh, hold on. That's not the one. That's the one. Just going to put this over here. There we go. And let's see.
You don't want to live there. I just said that.
Okay. So, oh, sorry. We already got this one. And, oh, here. At pureMix, I'm an independent musician. What's the best way to contact Mr. Andrew to mix an EP?
Well, the easiest thing is you get in touch with my manager, Frank McDonough. So it's Frank at mcdman.com, and he'll ask some questions like, what are you doing with it, and how many songs, and when would you need it, and how much money you got, and all the usual like questions I need to know. And then he'll pass stuff on to me, and he will not turn stuff down for me. Everything gets forwarded to me. He doesn't make decisions, and it's all based on music and schedule, really. There's obviously the monetary thing does come into it because I got to eat as well, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm having trouble buying groceries right now. So, I'm not looking for any pity, but I do take on tons of lower budget indie things, which means I can't just take on everything because everything is already a bit of a compromise monetarily. So, yeah, but that's the deal. So I don't want to go on about it, but that's how you do it. You go through my manager and he collects some info, and then I have a listen. And if it can happen, it can happen. And if it can't, it can't. And one thing to keep in mind is never take stuff like that too personally, because obviously musical taste is so weird and so different for everybody. And you might be working on something that you think I would connect with like crazy, and I wouldn't even be able to tell you why I don't, but I don't. And I can't work on music that I don't connect with, because you can't. It's really hard to do a good job if you don't like it. So yeah, it just whatever. And at the moment, I have to say it's really difficult because I'm kind of crazy busy because the Atmos thing has exploded. So all the time I would have had for smaller projects is being taken up by Atmos mixing while I'm still mixing regular stereo stuff.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. This is a good one from Relax Max. Is the sound of the mix, or can the sound of the mix make the groove? I mean, if we mix the stronger hi-hat, for example, can we consider that the groove is no longer really the same? So I love this topic.
Course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the groove can come from anything. It can be the strumming pattern on the acoustic guitar or the hat or whatever. But yeah, I mean, just mess with it while you've got, but do it with everything in, and mess with things like the hi-hat and percussion. And even the kick drum, because that kick drum pattern against the bass will change the groove. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything changes the groove.
Right. Yeah. That was, I'm going to do a little shout out to John Paterno, who he does one-on-one mixing lessons, and I'd done many of those with John. And that was something that he really kind of drilled in with me, was how you can completely change the groove of a track just with your compressor settings, and, you know, being careful to not overdo it and destroy groove and all of that. So yeah, I really love that
John's
topic, because I
a
learned a lot
fucking
from
genius. He really is, and there's so much to it. I mean, I should take some lessons, because I know the concept of messing up your groove with compressors, but I have no idea what it is he would say about it. So I should probably talk to him.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then on a kind of different note, he, you know, while he was kind of explaining that, he would talk about subwoofers and live performance, and how he can't stand it usually because it'll just completely mess up the groove, and you're lengthening the kick drum, which isn't the intention of the drummer. And there's so many things.
Yeah, he hates subwoofers.
Yes.
Hates them.
Yeah. It
like,
was
it's
fun
not
to
subtle.
hear it go.
It is an active hate.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the rant is really fun. Okay. That's amazing. We have a couple Atmos questions in there. I'm going to point everybody to the talk that we did maybe a month ago now on Atmos. There was an entire Monday of Andrew Talks to Awesome People on Atmos. So that's definitely the one to check out to see Andrew's techniques on Atmos.
Though, of course, it's all changing all the time, you know, because it's new. So it's, it's great, and it's really difficult at the same time. And it's interesting, but it's really quite cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to answer this one real quick. Dave Westner asks, why did he hate subwoofers? And just the quick answer of that is how they can, if you think of like a live, everybody's been to a live show where the kick drum's just way too loud and it's way too subby, and it sounds like it lasts for a bar every time he hits it, whatever. So that was kind of a lot of the reason, was just that it can lengthen out the note so long that it just completely messes up the groove of what the drummer's actually doing. So
I feel like we went through it when he came on the show, when we did the interview. I'm sure we talked about subwoofers. That had to have come up. So go find that. It's there somewhere.
Yeah. Xanthi Scheps has a question.
Xanthi. Yes, I am fully in the box, as you well know. And my favorite way to wind down at the end of a day is to have 2 beers.
Awesome. Very cool.
And sometimes to be having 2 beers while I FaceTime with my daughter, Xanthi.
Yes. And I think it's time for
super
that.
Cool, by the way.
Yes,
And really involved in LA local politics right now. So if you guys don't know what's going on in LA, follow Xanthi on Instagram. She posts all sorts of stuff that's really good. She probably posted other places too, but I'm not on any of the other places.
Awesome.
So
do you know her handle by chance? Like,
isn't she just Xanthi Scheps? I don't fucking know. How does that
Xanthi
work?
Scheps.
Hold on. Let me look. I'll tell you. Oh no. Hold on. How do you search?
Here's the spelling of Xanthi for everybody. Xanthi is awesome. And you guys should all go follow her.
Xanthe. You'll find her. Just search for her. She's currently working with Mike Bonin, who's on the west side of LA and very progressive and awesome. And so she's doing good work. Much more important than mixing, as it turns out.
Right. Amazing. Andrew, thank you so much for giving us your time to do this, lending your ear.
Thank you,
and all of your
Mark,
advice,
as always,
it's
for
amazing.
hosting.
Yeah, this is amazing.
And,
it's such a learning experience to just watch you do what you do. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, cheers for that. And
Cool.
I'll see everybody next Monday to listen to what Manny Markin thinks about stuff, which is way cooler than what I think about stuff.
Oh, you.
Oh,
you. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. We will be doing this again, so stay tuned. All right. Bye-bye.